Hi guys. So welcome to another session at Insights. We are coming up with yet another session of Ignite at Insights. So obviously this is hard times. A lot of people might have undergone some personal loss, or a few people are fighting the pandemic yet. However, we from Insights would like to wish you people to stay strong, to be positive, and to never give up. All right. I would like to first thank the entire Insights team who has been working tirelessly, to keep the show going. And in this endeavor, Vinay sir has played a very important role in making sure this continues, to make the student community be motivated and inspired. So even in this pandemic time, we bring the program of Ignited Insight, which has been very famous, where you meet the best personalities of this country who help you keep motivated, who give an opportunity for you people to learn from their practical experiences. First of all, I would like to welcome Vinay sir, who is the founder and director of Insights. Welcome, sir. And I deeply appreciate for your initiative even during these tough times, even in the YouTube, the consistent videos that you're coming up with to keep the students motivated. Deeply appreciate your dedication towards it, sir. Welcome, sir. And today we have a guest. Ma'am is a very famous name in this entire country. Ma'am's name has been used even in ethics and essay as an example as well. So she's a very well-known name across the country. So today we have Durga Shakti Natpal ma'am, who is an IAS officer of 2010 batch Uttar Pradesh cadre, known for her fearless and strong actions against illegal sand mining. Her fight against the prevalent corruptions and criminalization of politics is truly inspirational. She has served under various capacities in Uttar Pradesh and under Union Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, and has also been the Deputy Secretary in Ministry of Commerce. Our TEDx talks like "What doesn't kill you make you stronger," as well as "There is no such thing as hard work," has been truly inspirational. And through her talks, she has inspired many, especially the youth of this country. So we welcome you, ma'am. We deeply appreciate your time during this pandemic times to inspire our aspirant community. Please welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sujit sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So I now give the stage to Vinay sir, who will speak a few words. Thank you, Vinay sir. Carry on, sir.
Thank you, Sudeep sir. So we are, in so much of trouble because of COVID everywhere, and our students were asking for guidance, mentorship. So in our end, we always felt that giving a kind of guidance, motivation from achievers, especially accomplished people from India, would give them real motivation and ignite. And appreciate Durga Shakti ma'am for coming here. And this is second time you are coming. And our students have appreciated your feedback, especially interview students. They have gained so much from your wisdom. I hope all the students who are attempting, so they have nearly like house full. It is actually 500 students are attending this session. So that is the limit of Zoom. So wish I think maybe many more could have joined Zoom session. I hope, not I hope, definitely they are going to get much more wisdom from your experience and motivation, especially during these tough, difficult times. They need all the motivation and support. So thank you so much, ma'am, for coming and associating with Insights and giving these kind of enlightening talks. Thank you so much. So you can take over, ma'am. You can continue the talk.
Thank you very much, Vinay sir, and a very good morning to everybody. In the very beginning, I want to convey my compliments to Vinay sir, to Insights, IAS, and the entire team, particularly for organizing this session and creating a platform wherein we can share our learnings and experiences with the young minds that are going to lead this country. And the best part about, that I like, the best part that I feel about, this whole setup is that this session is being organized completely free of cost. And like you said, that 500 students, which is the limit of Zoom. So I presume that 500 and maybe 10 another, including all of us, we're all going to be enjoying this session without spending anything. This is a very, very noble thought on your part. And, I wish you success in all your future endeavors. And my compliments once again to you for organizing this session without any, commercial interest in mind. It
Thank you.
speaks volumes of your the way you think, the way you lead your organization, and it motivates people like us also, to keep moving forward without thinking of our own personal and individual gains. Having said that, I congratulate each student here today for deciding to prepare for this exam and for attending this session today on a Sunday morning, wherein most of you could have chosen to take a break from your preparation, to take it easy on a Sunday. But I'm very happy to see that you are eagerly attending this session. Without much ado, we can start sharing the PPT. So as we can see, the topic is focus amidst uncertainty. And I would broadly be speaking into three parts. I think the topic is quite relevant, both in terms of preparation for the civil services, as well as the particular times, the distressing times that we all are in. So I would be speaking on two things followed by question answers. Can we tap, please, Mansa ma'am? The first is how to prepare for civil services. The second is how to stay motivated during this pandemic time. And of course, this would be followed by question and answers. Now, how to prepare for civil services? I think all of you would have received volumes of advice, and you would have drawn on your own learnings and experiences as to how to prepare, because I presume that most of you are already into the preparation and into various stages, be it prelims, mains, or interview. But I would be sharing some of my simple techniques, which will really help you go a long way. And they are easy to imbibe, easy to follow, but they reap immense benefits, because I have personally gained tremendously by following those small tips. And I've always liked to share them with my juniors who are preparing for their exam, so that they can also derive benefit. And of course, the second part would be how to stay motivated during this pandemic, how to yourself stay motivated, and how to keep people around you motivated and happy. Next slide, please. So how to prepare for civil services. This is the first part, and I have divided it into 4 subparts. The first subpart is planning and executing your preparation. Now, before you decide to do anything in life, planning is the most important thing. The second is that once your planning is done, what are some very simple, easy to follow, essential daily habits and tips that if you imbibe can help you a long way in your preparation. The third is command over your language. That is something we don't really talk about, but I think it's very important. And the third is relaxation and recreation, which is also a very important aspect of your preparation for the civil services exam. Now, I'll be speaking on each one of these topics one by one in little bit of detail. Next slide, please. Planning and executing your preparation. So like I said, when you decide to do anything in life, not just the preparation for civil services, but anything, it's always, it holds you in good stead if you plan your assignment, your task, your preparation in advance. It simplifies your journey. It makes it more interesting and enjoyable. And it gives you the opportunity to correct your course of preparation midway. So the first thing, which is most essential for planning your preparations, to have a timetable. And I say that having a timetable is akin to, making a golden start, because once your timetable is in place, you know what you're going to be studying today, you know what you're going to be studying the entire week, and you know what you're going to be studying the entire month, followed by the next month. And we all know that this is an exam which runs through 12 months. It runs through an entire year. So if you have a timetable in place, you would be able to streamline your preparation. It's a huge syllabus which is prescribed by the UPSC. And to be able to crack that huge syllabus in a short span of time, having a timetable really helps you. So another aspect of which flows from having a timetable is your waking time and sleeping time. If somehow you can incorporate that in your timetable, as in what time you are going to bed, preferably, that time should be the same every day. Maybe 15-20 minutes plus minus is possible. But if you have a specific time of waking and a specific time of sleeping, you are able to channelize your energies more productively, because you wouldn't feel tired, you would not feel short on sleep if you are sleeping a fixed number of hours and at a fixed time every day. And my personal suggestion is that try to wake up early, try to sleep latest by 11, or if you want to stretch it further, by 12 o'clock. There are, everybody has their own style of preparation. Some people like to study late into the night and wake up a little late in the morning. Some people sleep early, wake up early. But the circadian rhythms play a very important role in our preparation. The sunrise plays a very important role. So if we can wake up sometime around the sunrise, or maybe a little later, you will see that your energy and your day's productivity will get enhanced. And for those who like to study till late in the night, I would, they probably wouldn't like my advice so much, but I would still request you that do try for at least 2-3 days, and then decide whether you want to wake up early or you want to wake up late. So and a good sleep is very important. So if you're sleeping at say 11 or 12 o'clock, I would recommend at least 6 hours or maximum 7 hours of sleep. Don't sleep less than 6 hours. And of course, don't oversleep also, because then you tend to feel a little, the more you sleep, the more sleepy you feel. So if you sleep more than 7 hours, you tend to feel more lethargic during the day. But definitely do not try to crunch up your sleep with your preparation, and don't sleep less than 6 hours. A good sleep is very important for you to solidify your preparation in your mind, because when you're sleeping, then also our mind is working. We are continuously revising in our mind what we've studied, those thought processes, those chapters, discussions, they keep going on in our mind. So you need to give your mind sufficient rest time also. And like I said, plan your day, week, month. That is a part of having your timetable only. When I say plan your day, it means that if, let's say, you are studying about 13 to 14 hours on an average. I mean, you could be studying anything between 8 to 10 hours to a maximum of 15 to 16 hours. So whatever number of hours you are studying, it should be very clear to you that once I wake up in the morning, after freshening up, this is my 2-hour study window, followed by breakfast, then another 2-hour study window, followed by a small break, a tea break or a snack break, or just a general chit chat break, and then another 2 hours followed by lunch. So this is the kind of planning that you should have in your day. It shouldn't be that I'm sitting and I'm let's say I'm sitting and studying at a stretch for 3 to 4 hours, and then when I get up to take a break, I'm so exhausted that I don't feel like sitting again. So take breaks in between, but those breaks should be well planned. It shouldn't be that, okay, now I'm sitting and when I get tired, I will get up. You should give yourself small targets. After fulfilling those targets, you should reward yourself. So let's say my small target is that I have to finish 10 pages, or let's say 1 chapter in 2 hours. So after 2 hours, I will take a small break. That is like a reward for myself of having completed that target. So that is how you plan your day. Similarly, days make up a week and weeks make up a month. So every single day, the whole target should be in your mind. So many chapters, particular answer writing practice or mock tests or whatever, you at the stage of preparation you are at. So if it's a Sunday today, I should be very clear in my mind right now that what should I have completed by the next Sunday. So that is called the week planning. I know what I'm going to study the whole day today, and I know what I will complete by the end of next Sunday. Similarly, by the end of next month. So let's say if you have 6 months, to your exam or 3 months to your exam, you should divide those 3 months week by week and those week into days and try to adhere to that timetable, to that planning. It may not be so wise to cut short of that planning or to exceed that planning. Try to stick to that schedule and plan your sleep, your working hours, so that you neither compromise on your sleep, neither you compromise on your timetable. Now, clarity in syllabus, sources to read. Like we're all aware that the syllabus is very vast. So first of all, we should have that syllabus in front of us before starting our preparation. Like I said, planning. So having that syllabus in front of you is a part of your planning. What all chapters are there? What all are the subparts of those chapters? What are the themes that need to be covered? All that should be on your fingertips. It should be so strongly on your fingertips that the moment a question comes in front of you, your mind should be able to quickly relate that, yes, this question is from that subpart, from that chapter of the prescribed syllabus. So the syllabus, first of all, should be on your fingertips. And then you should be very clear on the sources to read. So, of course, Insights IAS will be greatly helping you. It would be defining what all you have to read and from where you have to read. But for those people who are, doing self-study, who do not have the benefit of coaching, they should have this clarity in mind that what to read and where to read from, so that you are you're not reading from too many sources and you're reading from the right sources. That is very important because you have limited time. And we all have limited cognitive capacities. We cannot keep reading endlessly. So we want to read only those things which are within the syllabus and which are useful to us. Then NCERTs. This is a very, very basic thing, which, people always ask me that why is it necessary to read NCERTs? And is it necessary to read NCERTs from all the classes, like from class 1 to class 12? People have even asked me that, can we read NCERTs from class 5 onwards? So I always say that NCERTs are the simplest textbooks because that's how we've all started with our schooling. And they have very fundamentally important subjects, issues covered, which sometimes, we are not able to cover from other sources, from other specialized sources. And the content in the NCERTs is like your foundation. So here is where you take it forward, where you start from the basic and then move to advanced. So please do read your NCERTs very carefully. And when I say read, my technique of suggesting reading is not simply reading. When I say read, I mean to say read, underline, memorize, then make your notes in your own words. So whether it is an NCERT or any other source that you're reading from, the pattern that if you follow would greatly help you, which I myself followed, is that first I used to read, then I used to, internalize what I have read. Internalize means I used to formulate it in my own mind that, okay, this is what I have read. Then I used to make notes in my own register, in my own language. So this whole exercise helped me in 2-3 ways. First of all, it used to improve the understanding. Secondly, it used to improve the retention, that is the memorizing part. And third, it used to improve the recall and the writing part, because I used to be writing my notes in my own words. And the fourth most important benefit was that at the time when the exam is just nearby, I don't have to revise from multiple sources. All I needed to revise from was my own notes, which I had made myself in my own language. So the whole process of revision and recall became very simplified. So that is one style maybe which you could consider adopting. Then focus, that is the main theme of our discussion today. Focus means to be thorough, not exhaustive. Like the strategy which I followed was that I used to identify that whatever I am reading, first of all, whether it is the right source or not. Secondly, whatever I am reading, I should be so thorough in it that there should be no question under the sun that if it comes from where I have read, I should not be able to answer. So that is what I mean when I say be thorough. Whatever you read it so many times, try to internalize it so many times that it becomes absolutely strong on your mind. And you need not be exhaustive. When I say do not be exhaustive, I mean to say is that you need not read from too many sources. Try to stick to
few limited sources, but be very, very thorough, so that whatever you read, you are absolutely 100% strong and clear on that. Now, case studies. This is something which I feel is very important, and it would add a unique approach to your answer writing for your mains paper. Case studies are particularly relevant if you use them in your essay paper, and more importantly in your paper 2. So if it's a public administration paper 2, or a psychology paper 2, or a general administration or a general studies, so if you use case studies of common man who have done well in life, like you could use case studies of social entrepreneurs, you could use case studies of international best practices, then they make your answer very, very prudent, and they add a special unique touch. So I'll give you a small example. For, maybe you're answering a question pertaining to people doing good social work, then somebody you could write about a non-controversial, completely innovative figure like Sonam Wangchuk. Now he has done something very simple and innovative. You all know that he comes from Ladakh, and he's an innovator, he's an engineer, he's an educator, he's a reformist. So now there was this problem of water scarcity in Ladakh. So what he and his team did was that they built artificial glaciers, they built ice stupas to solve that problem of water scarcity. And the whole concept, he did it so quickly that it took government much longer time to find a proper solution. But by that time, he had already offered an interim solution to the people of Ladakh. So that could be quoted as a case study. Then how through community participation, monuments, places of public importance, then they can be maintained. So you could give an example of somebody who initiated some kind of a campaign and brought in more and more people into the fold to prevent vandalism, to prevent deterioration of public property, something like that. Then you could also give example of international best practices. Like if, for example, you're answering a paper of public administration or political science, then you can give examples of accountability and audit of international, where the accountability and audit practices have been internationally acclaimed. So the first country that comes to my mind is New Zealand, how it has, reshaped the concept of accountability. And you can talk about the lady prime minister. So these are non-controversial things, and the use of these such type of case studies depict the horizon of your answer writing. They depict the horizon of your thinking, that to what level ultimately you all are going to be officers, and this exam is going to test your capability to be an officer. So as an officer, you will have to adopt the best practices. You will have to be socially aware as to what are the best practices, what are the problems that are around you. So if you are already conscious towards governance, towards people doing good things, then it will reflect that in your answer, and it will earn you extra marks vis-a-vis the others. Then the importance of revision. And this is one of the very, very important points of planning your preparation and executing. I feel that revision should be of two kinds. First is daily revision, and the other is weekly revision. So by daily revision, I mean to say that in the morning, when you start your preparation, or before going to bed at night, whatever time you feel is comfortable for you, you spare about 30 to 40 minutes for revising what you have done. So let's presume that you are revising in the morning before you start with your daily preparation. In that case, you would be revising what you have read the previous day. Or for instance, you are revising in the evening. In that case, you would be revising what you have read the entire day, that very day. But do keep 30 minutes for revision. It will, you will see that it really eases your process of recalling. Because what happens is that when we prepare such huge vast of syllabus and we have to read so many different materials, so what happens is that we tend to forget what we have read in the last few days as we keep moving on. At least it used to happen a lot with me, that something that I read only yesterday or day before yesterday, I used to forget by the time I would move 2 days ahead in my preparation. So I realized that if you do daily revision, of say 15 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on your own, individual need, it greatly helps. It solidifies what you consolidates what you have read. And in the end of your 1 year preparation, or whenever your exams are due, you will see that the last minute midnight lamp, you don't really need to burn, because everything is on your tips. You are already very thorough because you have done your writing of your notes on a daily basis. You have done revision on a daily basis, and you have stuck to a timetable. So this is what I was telling you about daily revision. Now I'll also quickly tell you about weekly revision, which means that one day in an entire week, you need to devote to only revision. Let's say if I'm studying 5 days in a week or 6 days in a week, one day I should keep only for revising what I have read the entire week, from Monday till Saturday. Whatever I have read, I would keep one day to revise the whole of it. So in case on your daily revisions, if you end up forgetting something by the end of the week, then again, this is a course of rectification for you. And you will give yourself another opportunity to revise, to recall what you have read in the past few days. And don't give up. I think that is the crux of the entire preparation, because it's a long preparation. It goes into months and months. For many of us, it goes into years and years. And everybody knows. For those who don't even take this exam, even they know that it's one of the toughest exams of the world. It requires huge amounts of willpower and self-determination. It's very natural that we would get exhausted, mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. But the golden rule is that don't give up. And it's all in your mind. I mean, if you tell your mind that no, I will not give up, then you don't need anybody else to tell you anything. I mean, people like us, we can only guide you and advise you, but it's all a game of the mind. If you tell your mind that I'm not going to let myself down, I'm not going to let my energies and spirits down, then you don't need anybody's guidance. You don't need any help. You are strong in your own way. So tell yourself that if you give up, it will only be because of you. And if you don't give up, then also it will only be because of you. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, essential daily habits and tips. I've already spoken in detail in the previous slide, covered most of these points, but quickly I'll take you through in case I have missed anything. Follow a timetable. I have already told you. Why I have repeated this point here is that when I say plan, it means to make a timetable. And when I say essential daily tips, it means follow a timetable. Now, I've experienced that many of us, we do make a timetable, but we don't follow it. At the cost of sounding repetitive, I have again included this point just to overemphasize the need for a timetable. That making a timetable and following it, both are two separate things. You need to give them equal attention and importance. If you make a timetable and you don't follow it, it's of no use at all. So newspapers. Now newspapers, I'm sure all of you would be reading a particular newspaper every day, whatever is your choice, whether it is the Hindu or Indian Express or Hindustan Times or Times of India, whichever you like. I don't usually recommend any newspaper because I feel that most of the news gets covered in all the newspapers. And if you don't enjoy the process of newspaper reading, then there is no point in advising you a particular type of newspaper. It is more important to enjoy reading a newspaper rather than reading a specific newspaper. So whichever newspaper you like, please read. But what is more important is two things. Firstly, that you read it every day. Daily newspaper reading in a structured manner is very important, and that also flows from your timetable. So maybe you could start your preparation with the reading of the newspaper. It would take good 40 to 45 minutes at least to cover the newspaper in a let's say reasonably good manner. It can take more also, or you could read it during the middle of the day. But whatever time you read, please read it every day and try to read it at the same time. so that, you know, it becomes a part of your structured timetable. And then again, making notes of the newspaper is very important. When I say you make notes, I would again reiterate what I said. You read the news, internalize what the news has said, and without referring to the newspaper. So if this is a book or a newspaper that I am reading, after reading it, I put it away and I internalize what I have read. And then in my notes, subject specific, I would, if it's relating to health sector, so I would jot it down in that particular health section that I have made in my notes. If it is relating to politics or relating to governance, then it would go in that section. So I would internalize what I have read, and then in my own words, I would write that news item. And that again would be a part of your revision on that daily basis and weekly basis. So this again, newspaper reading would actually become a very researched way of preparing for your exam. It is not just for your general awareness. It is more than general awareness. It will improve your retention capacity, your writing capacity, and of course, it will be an important part of your revision also. And fire of curiosity, that again, I would like to explain from the concept of newspapers. So when you read a newspaper, there are many, many terms that you will come across, but which you wouldn't be aware of. And when you're not aware of, you can do either of the two things. Either you can forget about it or you can read more about it. I would suggest that if you read more about it, you get an added advantage over the rest of the students. If you forget about it, you are at the same level as everybody else. So when you keep that fire of curiosity alive, that is when you take that effort to read more about it, is when you get an edge over the others and you improve your own capabilities and capacities. So like if there are any new terms or any new concepts, because newspaper talks about the news in brief, it doesn't tell you the history, it doesn't tell you the scientific terms like, you know, we have in prescribed syllabus material. So identify those terms, try to Google them or discuss with your teachers, with your groups, discussion groups, and have a holistic, comprehensive view of the entire picture. So let me explain it with an example that these days in the newspaper, you must be reading about patent waiver, that India and other less developed countries like South Africa and Latin American countries, they are fighting, you know, in the WHO that they should be granted patent waiver in the interest of health of its people. So this is what the newspaper will tell you, that yes, these countries are fighting for patent waiver, but it may not tell you which countries are against patent waiver and which are the strongest countries, which are less strong in the sense that they have a sort of a midway kind of a stand. They are neither here, neither there. So this you can, you know, try to Google or ask your teachers and friends, and then why there should be a patent waiver. What are the pros? What are the cons? If there is a patent waiver, do we lose anything? If there is a patent waiver, what do we gain? So try to have a holistic picture. So newspaper will only give you some factual knowledge, but it will lead you towards a much bigger picture, which will help you increase your overall knowledge. So keep that fire of curiosity alive and keep asking. You know, I even sometimes say that if you don't even have people to ask, if you don't have guidance available, ask your own self. These days, we have so many sources. We have Google, we have Wikipedia, we have so many sources that we can, you know, find information from. So keep asking yourself questions, keep asking others. Written notes I've already spoken about. Answer writing practice is also follows from written notes. When I say answer writing, daily answer writing of at least one answer, and if possible, 2 answers is best when you are through with your prelims preparation. In fact, I would suggest that during your prelims preparation, if you can do answer writing of 1 answer, and after your prelims preparation, if you can do 2 answer writing daily, it will greatly enhance your retention, recall, and writing capabilities. And it doesn't take much effort at all. One simple way to do it is that if I have read 1 chapter today, I will pick up a question from that chapter from the past year papers, and I will address that question in my own words because I have already read that chapter. So everything is, you know, on my tips. I will address that question in the number of words that have been prescribed. And this will not take you more than 10 to 15 minutes. Maximum 15 minutes it will take if you write one answer, and 30 minutes if you write two answers. But these 15 to 30 minutes of answer writing practice will make a huge difference, huge difference to your preparation. Now, discussion groups. I summarily mentioned that, and I'm sure you would be having your small groups of friends with like-minded interest. Try to assign tasks to them. That one topic you will research and discuss in the evening. This another topic you will research and tell in the evening, so that you can pool knowledge. And try to keep 30 minutes for that also. It will, refreshen your mind. It will take you away from books, so it will charge you up, and it will add to your knowledge. Mock tests are very important. Again, like answer writing is a type of mock test, but that is something that you do yourself. Mock test, when you are preparing for prelims, if you can undertake mock test at the end of every month, so it will again tell you what course correction you need to do. So let's say after 1 month of preparation, if I take a mock test on the particular subject, that particular syllabus that I have read, then I will know that in the mock test I'm not faring so well in these areas. That means that I need to strengthen these areas. These are my weak areas. So mock tests help you introspect that where you need to improve. If you could take them, there are so many sources available there. You have past year papers. You could sit and do them yourself also if you don't have professional guidance available. But what is important is that we should not lose time. At the end of 3 or 4 months, we should not realize that, oh, these are my weak areas. It is better to take a test, whether self or professionally, and realize it at the end of 1 month that these are my weak areas, and try to make them strong. And love your preparation, of course, is the most underlying theme of essential habits and tips, because I feel that if you love your preparation, you will not feel tired. You will enjoy what you read. You will enjoy what you discuss. And if you take it as a task, or if you take it as a burden, then your own whole preparation will become very lengthy and boring. So try to enjoy whatever you read. And it's not difficult to enjoy at all, because it is your own decision to take this exam, to prepare for it. So might as well love your decision. Next slide, please. Command over language. I'll quickly speak over this. Basically, when I was preparing for my exam, the general theme during those times was that content is very important. What you write is more important. How you write it is not so important. Definitely, I would still say that is true even today. But if you want that edge, because our discussion today is all about having that edge over your own self, over others, how to be better than your own performance level, how to be best. So if you can have a command over your language in addition to content, it will give you that edge. And there are very simple ways to do it. Whenever you talk to your friends in your discussion groups, talk to them in that particular language in which you are going to be giving the exam, which you think may not be so strong. So if you are writing your exam in English, talk to them in English. You are in any case reading your material in English. So you are, going through your presentation skills day in and day out. But if you speak to your friends in English, it will improve your vocabulary. Then 15 minutes to 20 minutes of news watching, I recommend to all the students, because it helps you in two big ways. So the first big way is that if in the evening I watch the news, I know what is going to come in the newspaper the next day. So that reduces my effort to go through the newspaper. I already know that, oh yes, I heard this news in the TV or on the radio yesterday. So it is already there in my mind. It will reduce your time and effort in the newspaper exercise. That is the first benefit. And the second benefit is that it will teach you many new words. You will, in 15 minutes time, you will learn new vocabulary, new terms which are relevant. So it will improve your command over the language. Then the third thing is make a diary. So like when I was allotted my cadre Punjab, my first cadre was Punjab. This is when I experimented with this concept. I did not know the Punjabi language, and I was very keen to learn it quickly because all the administrative work was done in Punjabi. So even though I knew a little bit how to speak in the academy, we were taught, but a new language is a new language. So what I did, I made a diary And whatever new words that I encountered by reading the Punjabi newspaper or whatever material that I read, I used to write those new words in that diary along with the meaning in Hindi or English. So every day, around 5 to 10 words, new words of the language I was learning. But in your case, how you can adopt this particular practice is that whatever new terms that you are learning, whether it is your English language or whatever language, you please note those terms in your diary. It will become like a mini dictionary for you, and keep revising. Revision, I would say, is applicable to everything that you read, whether it is the newspaper and make notes, whether it is the new words, or it is your own conventional preparation. Practice and improvise. So when I say practice and improvise, I mean to say that in any case, I have already suggested that you do 1 to 2 answer writing practice on your own every day. That is your practice. And improvising means that try to get your answers checked through your teachers, through your discussion groups, through elders who have experience in that particular optional. So for example, one of your parent may be able to help you, or you may have siblings who have prepared for this exam earlier. They may be able to help you. So try to improvise your answers by getting them checked. Keep practicing and keep improvising. This will also help you improve the command over your language. Next slide, please. Relaxation and recreation. So this is very important. Like I said, that this is also an intrinsic part of your preparation. You need to take regular breaks, whether it is a 15-minute break or it's a weekly break. Break is what recharges you and makes you look forward to your preparation further. And some ways of taking a break are to spend time with your family and friends. These days, we are more or less confined in our house, so we can, spend time with our family. We are away from our, places of preparation. We are at home more or less. So try to spend some fruitful time with your family and with your friends. Talk to them in howsoever manner you have discussion groups. So have a light-hearted chat, and this will, greatly help to recharge you. Exercise is very, very important. And exercise can be in any form. Basically, it should be whatever you like to do, whether it is yoga or it is running or jogging or it is jumping or dancing, but some form of exercise to keep you physically fit, at least 30 to 40 minutes every day. And preferably in the morning itself is, goes a very long way in improving your digestion, in improving your concentration, in reducing your stress levels, improving your focus. So please try to definitely incorporate a schedule of exercise in your daily habits. Then healthy diet is very important. I think this pandemic has shown all of us that, people with higher immunity levels are in a better position to fight the virus and its after effects. And higher immunity comes from two things. One is exercise and the other is healthy diet. We all love to have junk food. I also like to have, but try to keep 2-3 bananas on your table. The moment you feel hungry, instead of stretching out your arm to have a packet of chips or biscuit, try to have 2 bananas. They are very healthy and they will keep you full. They will instantly quench your hunger. Listen to your favorite music. I think listening to music is something that instantly takes away our stress and worry and anxiety. So keep some time to listen to your favorite music also. It will help you in answering your interview questions also, if you have, if you decide to take it as your, if you decide to specify it as your hobby in your, interview form. And of course, like I said, enjoy your preparation. Don't worry at all. Somebody told me a very nice phrase, that what is worry? And I said that, wow, I mean, this is also such a nice perspective. I never knew that this is worry. So I was told that worry is like walking with an umbrella, waiting for it to rain. So something that has not happened, we are constantly worrying about it, whether we will get through the exam or not. I mean, the result will come when it will come, but I'm already worried about it. So I'm like walking with an umbrella and waiting that it will rain. And I'm worried that, oh my God, the umbrella will protect me or not. So leave the worry part, just focus on your preparation and enjoy every moment of it, because it is your decision to prepare. And the more you own up to your decision, the more you make this journey enjoyable, the more likely you are to reap benefits of your choice, to reap results of your choice. Next slide, please. So how to stay motivated during this pandemic? I think most of the points have been indirectly covered, but quickly I'll talk about those that haven't. It won't last. It's very important to first tell yourself that this pandemic is not going to be there forever. I definitely agree that it has been stretched, it has been longer than it should have been, and it has become worse day by day. But we need to tell ourselves that it will not be there forever. And let's hope that, a person in one lifetime will not see more than one pandemic. So if we are seeing this at an early stage in life, we should be grateful to whosoever, be grateful that it is making us stronger. It is making us stronger in terms of our resilience, in terms of our preparation that we are doing in these challenging times. And it will definitely help you in the long run, because what you are learning now and challenges that come early in life always help when you grow mature in life. I always say that, it's always better to have obstacles and problems early in life, so that by the time you grow, you would have already known how to handle them. And this also offers an opportunity to you to keep an eye on new research trends. So during the pandemic, so many new things are happening. Industrial oxygen is using for medical oxygen. That is the smallest example that I can give. Now, whether industrial oxygen is causing the problem of black fungus or not, how is industrial oxygen diverted to give medical oxygen? Is it a complicated process or is it a simple process? So these are new research trends that are happening. And this is something that did not happen earlier because there was no such requirement. So it gives you an opportunity to keep your eye and be aware on these new trends. Have a good sleep. I have already spoken about nutritious meals. Again, like I said, that have junk food, but have it less, and try to have more of healthy food. Then watch 30 minutes of what you enjoy. So let's say that you are, feeling demotivated, or you're feeling stressed, exhausted. You don't feel like preparing for the rest of the day. Just take a break of 30 minutes and do what you enjoy. It could be watching a light-hearted, humorous, entertaining documentary or a short film. It could be listening to your favorite music. It could be chit-chatting with your family and friends. So just take out 30 minutes and just let loose. Just tell yourself that these 30 minutes, I'm not going to think about my preparation, and I'm just going to enjoy. Sit and introspect. This is again very important, because it offers you the opportunity to rectify your path. Sit and introspect. When I say, I mean to say is that, is your preparation going in the right direction or not? Whether the answers that you are writing, are they making you feel more confident or not? If they are, then you are going in the right direction. If they are not, then maybe you need to improvise. And for that, you need to identify and introspect where you are going wrong. It's a process which you at your individual level need to keep doing all the time. Of course, you have guidance, you have mentors, but if you incorporate that process as a self-done exercise, then you will be able to act much faster to strengthen your weaknesses. Meditation, if somehow you can do for just 10 minutes in a day, it will greatly improve your focus and concentration. I know these are easy to say things and difficult to imbibe, because especially at a time when you are all so busy with your preparation. But believe me, if you can somehow just take out 10 minutes for meditation, it will improve your concentration level by many number of hours. Next slide, please. Okay, so I continue. How to stay motivated. Be true to yourself. When you have told yourself that I'm going to wake up at this time, then when the alarm bell rings, don't try to say that, oh, another 15 minutes, another 20 minutes. You have promised yourself that I will wake up at this time. You have promised yourself that I will prepare for so many number of hours. You have promised yourself that I will do 1 to 2 answer writing practice every day. You have not promised anybody else. You have promised your own self. So please be true to yourself in terms of the promises that you have made. They are only for your own good. And you will yourself realize that when you stick to your promises, the benefits are huge that you derive. Be focused. Don't let obstacles and challenges dissuade you. Don't let them distract you. And meditation is a good way of being focused. Be grateful. It's very important to thank whosoever we believe in, that we are happy, we are healthy today, our family members are healthy, we have good food to eat, These times are distressing, but these times are also, very relevant in terms of being grateful for what we have. And in fact, I feel that one should be grateful all the time, whether in times of a pandemic or no pandemic. This is a trait that that gives a different magic to your personality. And one very nice quote I had read by Rhonda Bryan in her book, a very famous book called The Secret. It was later made into a documentary come movie also. The quote in the very first page, the moment you open the book, it says that the more grateful you are, that is, the more gratitude you extend, you will have more reasons to be grateful. So basically what the quote tries to say is that when you thank for what you have, you get more things, and you get more things and more opportunities to be thankful for. So be thankful for whatever we have, and don't give up. I said that is the most important thing, that giving up or not giving up is completely in the mind, and the human mind is so sharp. It has so many potentials and capabilities that it can literally decide to do anything. So giving up or not giving up is totally a game of the mind. And the last point, that the nation awaits your arrival, because like I said, that you are all the cream of this nation, the best minds who are taking on this toughest exam. So by the very fact that you have chosen to give this exam, it shows that you are the people who are going to be the leaders of this country, who are the ones who have the maximum intelligence and analytical capabilities. And this nation desperately needs people like you, charged up on energy and enthusiasm, who can come and do lots of good work. People of this nation have very high hopes. So the moment you feel down and out, tell yourself that there are many, many more people who are waiting for your arrival. Next slide, please. There is a short video which I found very refreshing and high on energy. And I thought that, maybe I should show it to all of you, particularly for those people who feel that the pandemic times are very demotivating and distressing. And the video is not pandemic specific. That is the best part about this video. It basically tells if you want to do something in life, it all depends on you. Nobody can really come and hold your hand. We have our parents, we have our family, we have our guidance, we have our coaching institute, we have our teachers, mentors, but they can only help you. They can hold your hand, but they cannot make you walk. So you have to do it all by yourself, and it is all in your mind, like I said. So this video shows that if you have decided, you can do it, because you have everything in your own self to do it. Please enjoy this video. I would request Mansa ma'am to play it.
Recognize the excuses are not valid. Don't judge the fact always. And sometimes just the voice of truth. The tools you have still have the knowledge and the support and the willpower and the discipline to get it done. The truth of every life begins with challenge. And it's just and it's not going to be something that and it's just so simple. It's this is your chance. This is your shot. This is your moment. This is your time.
I think the link to the video has been shared. There was a little lack of clarity in the audio and the overall relay. So it would be shared, I think, on your channel, and the link is also specified. Maybe all of you can have a look at it later and share it among your friends. It really instantly recharges you.
Ma'am, we'll go with the question answer session. Ms. Sabha will be asking the questions that students have posted, and you can take one by one, ma'am. Sabha, you can convey the questions to ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Myself, Sabha from Insights IAS Bangalore. It's an honor and privilege to speak to you today. I will be moderating the question and answer session. You have already addressed most of the student queries. However, I will be posing a few more. Shall we begin? The first question is from Sparsh Chaudhary. What are some of the challenges you faced with respect to personal and professional ethics? And what approaches did you adopt to tackle them while fighting the powerful mafia in your very first posting and in the later years?
Thank you, Sabha, and thank you, Sparsh, for this question. I think professional challenges are something that make you stronger in life. Whether it is a personal challenge or a professional challenge, they're like a zip compressed file. You know, we used to compress data in a zip file and push lots and lots of data into a small size. So that is what challenges are like. They push lots and lots of learnings into one compact size in a short span of time, and something that you would ordinarily learn in maybe 5 years, 10 years of service. These professional challenges that I faced give you an opportunity to learn in a very short span of time, maybe a few months, and they make you more determined, more bold, more brave to fulfill your purpose in life, which is to do good to as many people as you can. And I think that something that made me keep going amidst all these challenges and difficulties was my strength of thought and conviction. When you are strong in what you believe in, you have clarity in what you believe in, then you see challenges as just coming and going. When you are focused on your commitment and on your conviction, then your journey of facing obstacles and emerging strong and victorious becomes much easy, because you have that anchor, you have that guiding light, that this is what I stand for. And when you know what you stand for, you just have to stand strong enough and not let yourself shake. And the best part about believing strongly in your principles is that even though initially you may feel alone, that there is nobody to support you, but when people realize that your convictions and your principles are doing good to others, then they come and support you. People from different corners, whether they know you or they don't know you, whether you know them or you don't know them, they all lend their support and prayers to you. But having said that, I also want to say that it is your individual fight, which you have to yourself live this battle, whether it is a preparation of the exam or it is the challenges that we face later on in life, whether they are personal challenges or professional challenges. They are all your individual fight. You may have people to support you, to pray for you, but if you are strong, then your journey becomes much easier. So that is the underlying theme. Be strong physically, emotionally, and stand by your conviction and principles. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Rahul Bajpai asks, I always feel that something terrible is about to happen and thus unable to focus on studies. How do I deal with negative emotions?
Okay, Rahul. So first of all, don't worry at all. It's normal that if you feel that something terrible is going to happen, I'm also like you. Many of us are like you. You are like us. We are all in the same boat. We have, just by being a human being, we are, born with a trait of being worried that this may not happen and this may happen. So first of all, tell yourself that this is a natural emotion that you are going through. But if you can overcome this emotion, you will be able to tremendously improve in terms of whatever you are doing, whether it is preparing for the exam or being internally happy. So one part is to accept that this emotion troubles everybody, and the other part is to overcome this emotion. Don't condemn yourself, don't criticize yourself that why am I going through this emotion, because first, it's very natural to go through this emotion. You are not the only one. We all are going through, and we all go through at different phases of time in our life. It is not that we are going through just now. When a person is born, from the day the child is born till the day the person grows and dies, this emotion stays with us forever, sometimes in less intensity, sometimes in more intensity. But what is important is to not let it disturb you, to not let it hamper your daily routine, whether it is your preparation or anything. And for that, you need to tell yourself that this emotion is only an emotion. It is not a fact. Like you said, that yourself said that something terrible is going to happen, which means that it has not happened. So it is not a fact. It is just an emotion. So if you tell yourself that when it will happen, something bad, when it will happen, I will tackle it at that point in time. I'm strong and I'm capable of tackling it. So even if something bad has to happen, why should we wish away bad things? Let them happen. Let them give us an opportunity to be stronger. Let them give us an opportunity to learn new things. So tell yourself that, look, come head on, whether you want to trouble me or you want me to learn and emerge victorious. I'm prepared for everything in life, and there is nothing that I cannot handle. So when this emotion disturbs you, when that thought worries you that something bad is going to happen, tell yourself that if something bad is going to happen, I will handle it. And you will realize that you are a much more confident and a powerful human being by your own self. Nobody is making you powerful or strong. It is you, your own self, who's telling that I am strong, capable, and confident. And you will impart yourself strength and resilience to handle. And you will not even realize when you will move out of this worry, and you will be more focused and concentrated just with your own effort.
Next question is from Smriti. As a woman civil servant, were there any unusual challenges you had to face? And what are your views on work-life balance?
What is the name? Shruti.
Smriti.
Smriti. Okay, Smriti. I think nobody wants to ask topic-specific questions, but yes, I'm very happy that you people are thinking ahead, because ultimately this preparation is going to make you administrative officers of this country, leaders of the country, and it's always nice to know that the challenges that women officers might face and how to do a work-life balance. So I would say that as a woman officer, particularly by way of gender, I have not really faced any challenge. I think I have been fortunate because of the way I have been brought up, the way my parents brought me up. They never really made a difference between a boy and a girl. And when you are brought up in such a manner, so then when you enter a new profession, you don't have that demarcation in your mind. And automatically, people don't treat you that way, because they know that the officer is very headstrong and she or he will not take any nonsense. So people come prepared when they come to you. So first of all, it is very important to be strong in your mind that whether it is a challenge, it is a challenge. It is not gender specific, and you are strong enough to handle it. And the work-life balance part, very important question. Indeed, it becomes difficult for people in this profession, because we get posted to areas where we may not be able to live with our families. Then when you have children, their education, the facilities that are needed, their care, whether you can keep your parents with you to take care of your child or not. These are definitely work-life balance issues that come up. But I feel that these kind of challenges come up in almost every profession. It's not a cakewalk anywhere. And it is neither a cakewalk, nor are they so impossible to handle. You always find solutions in some form or the other. When you have a supportive family, you have ways to channelize your day in terms of number of working hours and the hours that you are spending with the family. So if you are clear that this is my professional life and this is my personal life, then the conflict doesn't really arise. And if it arises, then also there are solutions available which you can easily manage. It is not something that troubles you so much, that except of course in a very few cases it does, that people are not able to handle due to circumstances, due to whatever reasons, due to not having a supportive family, due to having professional problems. So it does happen, but in very, very less number of cases. And the moment you prepare for this exam, it already makes you so strong that work-life balance just happens automatically.
Vishal asks, what is the importance of an academic record or graduating from reputed institutes in civil service?
Okay, so Vishal, academic record, I would say the importance is limited to the fact that if you have a good academic record, I presume that you are strong on what you have read in your college or in your graduation and post-graduation. So anything that you have read in which you are strong on will help you in your preparation for this exam, because in some way or the other, you are going to fall back on that particular preparation in some subject or the other. Even if you decide to not take an optional from your graduation or undergraduation subjects, you would still be using that knowledge somewhere or the other, maybe in your essay paper, in your general studies paper, in your prelims, or for that matter, even in your interview. So if you take your academics seriously, it helps you in two ways. First of all, it fosters that attitude of seriousness in your preparation, in anything in your life. When my academic is good, that means that I have worked hard, which means I will automatically work hard for the preparation also. So that is the first thing. It fosters that attitude of being, committed towards your preparation, whether it is academic preparation or it is your civil services preparation. And second, like I said, that the knowledge that you have gained, it never goes waste. You will always use it. Maybe later on in life, you may share it with your friends in some discussion groups or the other. So it is always better that whatever you are doing, like in my case, when I started preparing for the civil services exam, I was doing my engineering, BTech. I was studying for that. So generally what happens is that when we start preparing for civil services, we tend to ignore our academics, because there is so much that we have to read. And how much can one, how much can a person in early 20s, how much can one possibly read in a limited day? You have to do college studies also, you have to do civil service preparation also. So that's why I said that read little, but be thorough, so that whatever you read, you are able to productively use that knowledge. And do take your academics very seriously. But as far as the prestigious institution you said, if that is of any consequence or importance or not, I don't think that really has any merit or value, because ultimately what you are as a human being in terms of your intellect and your personality is what counts. Now, whether you have gained that knowledge, that perspective, that all-round personality from a premier institute or from a not so premier institute, it does not matter. And in fact, people from rural areas, people from not so privileged or famous institutions. They, are treated absolutely at par, and sometimes they are even, treated at an advantageous position, because, they have not received so many privileges and benefits early in life. So just be sound on your academics and forget about the institution.
Akshay asks, any tips for working aspirants who cannot leave their job, having only weekends, sometimes night shifts? How do they give their 100%?
Yeah, definitely, it is difficult for those people who are multitasking, who are working, who are earning a livelihood, and at the same time preparing for this exam. But I would say that since you have less number of hours to prepare, you should be very clear that I have this number of hours, and this number of hours I have to use them in the most efficient and productive manner, because you cannot stretch those number of hours. They are, limited because of your work schedules and commitments. So identify how many hours you have on a daily basis. Try to devote a specific number of hours every day. So it should not be that today I'm studying 1 hour, tomorrow I'm studying 2 hours, and day after I'm not studying at all. If I'm studying 3 hours every day, 4 hours every day, or 5 hours every day, I should be studying those number of hours every day, so that consistency is there in my preparation. Consistency is the most important virtue for this exam. So studying a fixed number of hours is the first thing that you need to ensure. And secondly, what you are studying, because now that you know that I have only 5 hours every day, so you know that this is the syllabus, and these are the number of hours, these are the number of days, these are the number of months on an average, not exact, but plus minus, taking that into account. So you should know that this much syllabus I have to cover in this many number of hours. So you will feel more confident that, look, I'm not losing out on pace vis-a-vis others. I'm still studying what others are studying in more number of hours, because you have streamlined your preparation. And try to do some nice, simple things, like to read in the journey. So maybe you're going in the bus or the metro. I remember when I used to prepare for the exam, and I used to come home from the coaching institute in the metro, which is the Delhi train metro service. I used to not get a place to sit. The whole metro used to be so crowded. So I had to keep standing for about 40 to 45 minutes journey that I took to reach home one way. In the morning also, I used to sometimes get a chance, because that used to be early morning. But on my return journey, I never got a chance to sit. So I always had my coaching notes in my hand, or the newspaper or the magazine, whatever. And I used to keep reading. So that additional 40 minutes I used to earn out of my limited time space. So there are some simple ways that you can do. Maybe try to read in your journey, and of course, like I said, that reading specific number of hours every day, preparing for that, so that you have a structured planning to your preparation. You're able to cover most of the syllabus, and you need to tell yourself that, look, you can't read everything under the sun. Nobody should read everything. It's not practically possible also. So try to read what is important and try to be thorough. And answer writing is what will really take you forward. Do the answer writing for all, whether you're working or you're not working, because preparation is one part and attempting the exam is another part. No matter how strong we may be in our preparation, but if we are not able to write answers, in a strategized manner, if you're not able to understand the question, what is the demand of the question, we're not able to articulate our ideas, then our preparation is like a waste. So try to, do answer writing practice, try to follow a timetable, and that's it.
Advait asks, should an aspirant worry about his or her personal life choices and how they often were not in line with ethical principles one learns in the preparation phase?
Definitely, Advait. There is, when one starts with the preparation of this exam, one realizes that there is a conflict, or there are, perhaps been reasons for you to think that there is a conflict between the personal choices that you made and the ethics that need to be kept in mind, the values. But like you said, that shouldn't one worry? So I would say that worry is something that will only kill your time. It will kill your potential, and it will kill the opportunity to do something good. So first of all, worry should never be done in life, whether it is for a conflict or anything. Absolutely, worry, you should not let it spoil your mood, spoil your day, spoil your energies. The one thing that you should do to resolve the conflict is to be sure what you want to do ahead now. Now that the conflict has happened, the only thing that you can do is to resolve it, to rectify it. And that is what should be done instead of worrying. And the moment you start resolving and rectifying that conflict, you'll realize that things are as glorious as they should be.
Rahul asks, the need for having a plan B in our second or third or fourth attempt.
Rahul, treat your attempt, whether it is second or third or first, as your final attempt. You may have given one attempt and you may be giving your next attempt, but whatever attempt, or you may be giving your very first attempt, but treat it as your final attempt and say, why final? Not because you are not going to be writing the exam again, but because you are going to be getting through the exam in this very particular attempt. And there are different believers of this thought, whether you should have a plan B or not. Some people say that it is nice, it is safe to have a plan B. It keeps you, it reassures you that if something wrong happens, you still have a plan B. But somehow I am not of that opinion. I feel that if B comes after A, then it automatically shows that B is less coveted, something that is less desirable. It is not our first choice. And when it is not our first choice, then why devote any personal attention or time to it? And if you treat every attempt as your final attempt, your plan A will be your plan B, it will be your plan C, it will be everything from A to Z. You will give your wholehearted energy to it.
Many students have asked, how do you deal with the fear of meeting expectations? Firstly, your family, your friends, your teachers, the society.
See, meeting expectations, I would say, is something secondary, especially meeting expectations of others. First of all, we need to grow individually in such a manner that we are able to meet our own expectations. And what are your own expectations? Your own expectations are that you are able to prepare well for your exam. You are able to get through the services so that you make your family proud, so that you are able to fulfill your dream, and you are able to do good to the society. So this is your own expectation. Sometimes, it gets confused that family also expects, and whether we are fulfilling their expectation, society's expectations, or we are fulfilling our own expectations. I think it is most important to focus on your expectations, to make yourself so strong that once you fulfill your own expectations, automatically the society's expectations fall in place. Because there is no conflict between what you want and what they wish for you. You want good for yourself and they also want good for you. But if you somehow feel that they want something else and you want something else, then definitely that's a cause of pondering, introspection, that whether what you want for yourself is right or not. And if you think that what you want for yourself is right, then all you need to tell yourself is that you are the only way through which those expectations can be fulfilled. So having that clarity is very important, and telling yourself that there is no conflict between the wishes and expectations of our well-wishers and what they want, what you want. I mean, isn't it quite obvious that our parents and family would want us to be successful in life, to be healthy and happy in life? And we would also wish the same for ourselves. So where is the discrepancy? And if there's a discrepancy, then maybe you need to sit and discuss as to what you are thinking is right or what others are thinking is right for you.
Sharat Kumar asks, ma'am, if an ethics study involves controversial topics like nationalism versus humanity, which is a better and safer approach?
So, the underlying principle is to have a balance. in any controversy or any controversial sort of a question. It's best to not take sides, because each theme has its own pros and cons, and each theme, whether they're at whether it's nationalism or it's humanity, both have their own advocates, and they are very strong advocates. I mean, they wouldn't budge in terms of their rationale and argument. So it's always best to draw upon a balanced answer when you're attempting such kind of questions, because it also shows that you are not choosing one over the other, and that is the true hallmark of an officer, that how to balance interests, how to take care of everybody. I mean, you cannot compromise nation on the ground of humanity, and you cannot compromise humanity on the ground of nationalism, and in many ways both are very strongly interlinked. So what you need to do is that you need to harness that interlinking, and you need to draw upon that look, these are the common points, and this is what we should emphasize on, lay stress on, rather than lay stress or importance on the conflict part. I mean, life is not about white and black. It's all about gray shades. So it's about, highlighting those gray shades.
A lot of them want to know about your personal interview experience.
I'm sorry?
Your personal interview experience.
Oh, okay. Okay. My interview, I faced the interview twice. In my first attempt, I got 180. And in my second attempt, I got 216. And I think the interview marks were 300 during those days, if I'm not mistaken. It's been quite some time. But something that was common to both my interviews, which I always tell the interview candidates, is that the form that you filled, DAF 1 and DAF 2, that is your that is your journey of interview. Those are the only papers which are there in front of the interview panel, and that is what they rely upon the most. That is what they rely upon the most, and that is what they used to ask you questions. So what I did in my case was that I thoroughly, very exhaustively, I studied what information I had filled in. In my times, there used to be only one form, and it was just about 3 or 4 pages. But now in your case, it's a much detailed form. So what I did was that every single piece of information that I had mentioned in the form, I generated about 50 odd questions on every information. So for example, where is my place of birth? Let's say it is Agra. So, there's unique things about Agra, the problems of Agra, the neighboring cities of Agra, the tourism potential of Agra, the politics of Agra, the governance of Agra, the social issues of Agra. So, I tried to generate, and I used to generate questions and write answers. So for interview also, I approached it in a little mains kind of a fashion, that I used to generate questions and write answers. So this enhanced my knowledge about my own self. After all, if I am gaining knowledge about my place of birth, then it is my own knowledge that I'm increasing. So this is how the strategy that I relied upon. And both my interviews, I felt my first interview was, of course, my first interview. It went well. But in my second interview, I was more confident. I was less nervous, less anxious. And I want to tell you that the members of the UPSC are very supportive. They try to, make you feel comfortable. And if you are feeling little nervous initially, don't, let that nervousness overcome you. Be calm, be poised. And UPSC members are very supportive. They will ask you questions gradually. And it's very important that you listen to the question, you pause for a few seconds, and then you take the answer. Sometimes we are in a rush to answer the question because we know that, we think that, we know the answer to this question. But it's always better to give that due respect to the question and to the person asking the question. That first you listen carefully, think about it, take a pause for a few seconds, and then answer the question. This shows your in terms of it's an important aspect of your personality, that you're not jumping, you're not you're waiting for your turn. You are giving the person asking the question due respect. You are applying your mind before answering, and then you are articulating your answer. And you're also reducing your chances of going wrong, because when you do something in a rushed up manner, we are more likely to make errors and mistakes, rather than if we think and answer it in a calm manner.
Shruti Srivastava asked,
Mansa ma'am, can we take just maybe one or two more questions? Because
yes, ma'am.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Is it necessary to have a mentor and a discussion group during the preparation?
No, it is not necessary. If you don't have that opportunity, it's perfectly fine. But it is better if you can have it. And there are ways to have it. Like in my case, I didn't have any discussion group. I didn't have any mentor, but I was lucky to have my parents around. So I used to, they were my mentors, they were my discussion groups. So a discussion group does not necessarily mean that you should have people who are preparing for this very exam. Discussion group can be anything with whom you feel happy discussing, and you gain a new horizon. So try to identify maybe siblings, and it could be one word communication also. It is not necessary that they have to add to your knowledge. As long as you are telling them something, you are improving your speaking capabilities, and they might ask you questions, the answers of which you may not know, but that will give you an opportunity to find out answers. So try to discuss. It's always better with somebody or the other. I'm sure you would be having somebody around you, but in the unlikely case that you don't, it doesn't matter.
The last question. A lot of them have told that they are very fearful of a lot of things. How do they develop courage if they do not feel courageous already?
Okay, so you need to tell yourself that this is very interesting. When a child is born, there is no concept of fear in that child's mind. And when that child grows, maybe when that child turns 1 year or 2 year old, then by that time also there is no concept of fear. So if, let's say, a small insect walks by a little baby, or a lizard or a cat, just goes around a little child, that child feels happy, that because that child is not introduced to the concept of fear. And when the child grows, when we become mature, when we enter school, when we enter college, we are taught fear. Fear is not something that we are born with. We are all born fearless, and the society and the circumstances to make us better prepared to face our own fears, challenges, and problems, we are taught the concept of fear. That look, if this happens, then this is your defense action. If happens, this is what you have to do. But and then this fear also takes different shapes. So from fear of danger, endangering your life, the fear takes shape of insecurities, like whether we'll be able to crack the exam or not, whether we'll be able to have a happy personal life or not. So I think to be courageous is to tell yourself that, look, you were not born with fear. And if we can be born without fear, then we can certainly tell ourselves that we can live also without fear. And living without fear has many more advantages than living with fear. Because when you live without fear, you are more happy from inside, and you are more contented. And like you said yourself, how to be courageous. So when you eliminate that concept of fear, when you tell yourself that, look, this fear is an external concept, it's not a part of me, so you automatically become more courageous to fight that external fear. You just need to tell yourself that this fear is not within me, it's outside. And if it is something that is not within me, I can easily remove it from my work scenario, from my own life, from my own individuality. So it's a lot of mental training that you need to do. You need to keep telling yourself again and again, that there's nothing that can harm you. And if anything that comes to harm you, you are courageous, you are strong enough to handle it.
On behalf of the entire student community, ma'am, we would like to extend our sincere gratitude and appreciation for your valuable time given to us today. Every word uttered by you were pearls of wisdom. And if the truly dedicated implement even half of what you said today, success isn't far for them. Thank you again, and we look forward to have you again with us. Vanessa will say a few words now.
Yeah, once again, good afternoon. So thank you so much once again. Listening to every word, whatever you said. So even though kind of experienced in this field, there is so much to learn from you. And no surprise that you scored one of the highest marks in the interview. And we hope that, I think there's so much to learn from you. The students can, the more we dig, the more, as Sabha said, pearls of wisdoms are coming out. So we hope to have more sessions like this. And I'm sure everyone who listened to this are immensely benefited. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for coming and delivering this lecture.
Thank you very much, Vinay sir, and to your entire team. And thank you to each and every participant for taking out your Sunday time to attend this session. I hope that I have been able to make some meaningful contribution to your preparation. And I wish good luck to each one of you. May you all be successful, and may you all be happy and healthy, and may all our families be happy and healthy. Thank you again.